So I'll introduce myself, and then maybe we can go around and I can get your guys' names so we can make it a little bit more personal. So I'm Aaron Hagler. I'm also online a lot as Yankee Teacher. So my online persona is Yankee Teacher, but it's not written like the baseball team. It's written like in Spanish, if you know what I mean. Yeah? So it's written like it should be. And I have been an English teacher for about 4 years. And at Icana, for just about 1.5. And so I do conversation classes just because I'm a native speaker. And so I help more, intermediate and up students. And so my idea is that today I'm going to talk slowly because I know we have a little mix of levels. I want to make sure that everybody understands. And so if you have any questions about anything that I say, or if you need me to repeat or something isn't clear, raise your hand, and then also I can sprinkle in Spanish there too. I speak really good Spanish, so if we need to, I can switch. Yeah, because I'm a big fan of code switching. So code switching is saying part of the sentence in English, luego pasar a español cuando puedas, and then go back and forth según tu medida de lo que uno needs, right? And so maybe we can do a little bit of that. Let's take a first second to say hello. Are we rolling, Facu? Okay, so hello to all of the BNCs that are watching us all over Argentina. Nice to have you. Thank you. We're over there. I won't forget about you. I'm going to look at you every now and then. And so we have binational centers in a lot of the cities in Argentina. I don't know if you guys knew that. But in Rosario, I know they're in even like Catamarca, is that right? In the south, we have one in Neuquén. San Juan, I think, has one too. They're kind of everywhere, which is really cool because what we try to do is promote North American culture in Argentina because, our countries are so far away, but they're so close together, more and more, right? And so if you guys probably know, the United States is turning 250 this Saturday. So a bicentennial and then some, right? And it's actually kind of crazy when you get to a whole number, because it's always like 190, 196, 210, but like 250 is like a big deal, And so I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to share this time with all of you guys. And so today's topic is going to be really interesting, yeah? Because there is a lot of ideas about the American dream specifically because it's something that we see in movies, it's something that we hear about, it's something that they teach us about, it's something that some people achieve and maybe others don't. So we got the binational centers watching, and then this Saturday, I don't know if you guys knew, but there's going to be some events in the Planetario, which will be really cool. Hopefully the weather allows us to go. And I just kind of want to get started telling you guys about me. Yeah, so you can have an idea of who I am and where I am from in the United States. So, I'm from the Southwest. The Southwest. Yeah? So can anybody guess, Mayor, where I might be from? The Southwest. No, that's the West.
Okay.
No, New Mexico.
I'm from New Mexico. Yes, exactly. So I grew up 30 minutes north of Ciudad Juárez and El Paso. So in the region that I'm from, we call it the borderland. And so our cultures are very, very mixed. I grew up hearing more Spanish than I did English in a lot of ways. At a restaurant, at school, at the daycare. All of the street names in my town are in Spanish as well. And so Spanish has always been really present. And I think that is something that I think about knowing where I am now, living in Argentina, kind of coming back and kind of getting my American dream in a different country. So we'll get to that later. But my town is called Las Cruces. It's the second largest town in New Mexico. Albuquerque is the largest. My city is the second. And then Santa Fe is the capital. And that's the third largest city. And New Mexico is a very, very special and unique place in terms of the United States. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. So New Mexico is a really special place because not only is it one of the biggest states, we have a huge amount of territory. Hey, long time no see.
Long time no see.
Welcome. How you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah?
How about you?
I'm good. Nice to see you. So New Mexico is a crazy place because we are the 5th largest state, right? So if you think about that in terms of Argentina terms, it's bigger than the provincia de Buenos Aires. It's huge. But we only have 2 million residents. So it's very empty. It's empty, right? Outside of the cities, there's nothing. And so whenever I was in high school, I decided to start studying Spanish. And since I grew up, hi, welcome. Nice to see you. And so whenever I was in high school, I started Spanish class and it was a little bit too easy. So they pushed me into the next level, to Spanish 2. And that's because my whole family, my mom's side of my family, they always spoke Spanish around me. But like a lot of Hispanic people in the United States, your parents don't teach it to you because they use it as like a secret language, you know, to speak to each other in private. They'll speak in Spanish. They might talk to you and say certain things in Spanish, but they never say, this is how you speak to me, practice. And so I think that's where I kind of got a knack for the pronunciation as time went on. And then whenever I finished high school, I moved to Albuquerque to go to university, and I studied journalism and Spanish. And so, Spanish, yeah. And so basically, like, I think here it would be something like letras, something like that, like the language. And so at my university, thankfully, we could do what we call a double major, right? So your major is your career, like we say, and you could do 2. And so in my 3rd year of university, I did not want to be one of those Americans that are so many of Americans that say, I studied Spanish in college and I can't even order a coffee. You know, you spend all that time, all that money learning something and you just lose it. You know, it happens with French, it happens with Spanish, it happens with Italian, for example. And so I said, I need to study abroad, right? I have to. So I go to the university, I see what my options are, and it was either Bogota or Buenos Aires. And it kind of just like how things happen in life, it was easier to come to the Buenos Aires than to Colombia. And the paperwork was less. And so it was just like, I got my passport, I got my plane ticket, and I arrived 2015. July 2015 was the first time I ever came to Argentina, which coincidentally, that was like a very critical year in the modern history of Argentina, you know? So I kind of got to see the older, a little bit of the older, and then I got to see the new as I was here. So I stayed here for 7 months. I went to school. I worked at a bar tour. So I would just guide drunk tourists around Palermo to bars. And then whenever I left, I was really, really sad to leave. And so I made a friend while I was here, Corby, who's a New Yorker.
Sad.
I was really sad, yeah, triste. Because I loved Argentina. This was my first tattoo when I was 20.
Very nice.
2 empanadas in the sun. It was my very first tattoo. So I was really sad to leave. And one of my friends that I made here, her name is Corby. She's a New Yorker who came and just happened to live in the same hostel that I was living at. And she said, look, you should come visit New York because it's really cool. So the following summer, 2016, I went to spend a summer in New York, like the song says, if you want to have fun, spend a summer in New York. And so I absolutely loved it. And so I knew that once I finished my last year of college, I needed to go to New York because New Mexico was not my place. You know, culturally, socially, economically, it was not really my place. And that makes me really sad too, because New Mexico, we're one of the states that, number one, the Spanish conquistadors, we say that in English, it's actually crazy. We call them conquistadors. Whenever they founded Santa Fe in New Mexico, like 5 years before San Agustin, Florida. And people say that San Agustin, Florida is the oldest European city, but no, it's Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so we really conserved a lot of our Hispanic identity. So you see people now, and you go to 10 different people, 8 of them have Hispanic last names. Garcia, Lopez, Hernandez, Rodriguez, like anyone you can imagine, they're there. But they speak no Spanish. And I think that as history shows, more Hispanic places that conserve their identity have been the ones that have not prospered in the right way. Because if you take Arizona and you take New Mexico, they're neighbors. They have the same history, the same development, everything. But Arizona didn't keep its Hispanic heritage. They kind of became American. And that's why they have 3 times the population. That's why they have 5 times the economy. That's why they have a bunch of stuff that we don't. They have a professional sports team, and New Mexico has none, right? And so it's crazy because we're kind of very fortunate in the fact that our culture is very, very unique. And people that move to New Mexico, they become New Mexican. They don't become from New Mexico. So a lot of people that are retired, or anybody, they move to Arizona, for example, and they never adopt like a culture and an identity of being from Arizona. They just live there. Whereas people that move to New Mexico, they become New Mexican because they learn to eat our food, they learn the language, they learn to pronounce certain words. You know, like one of the main avenues in Albuquerque is El Paseo. And so people learn to say El Paseo, Comanche, you know, all these names in Spanish. Like one of the streets in my town is called Solano, and everybody calls it Solano, you know, on Solano. And so it's kind of crazy because you become New Mexican, we eat spicy food, it's really sunny, it's really hot, and so you have to really adjust to life there. So that is kind of what made me sad to leave New Mexico, because it wasn't my place. And so I moved to New York, and I get a job, my first big boy job at an agency, a graphic design agency, that coincidentally was building a team in Argentina. And my bosses, they were from Puerto Rico. And I'll never forget working for Puerto Ricans because they're such special and fun people. They're very intense emotionally, you know. I don't know if you guys have ever met Puerto Ricans, but they're very, very passionate, you know. And so in 2019, after all of the things that were going on in Venezuela, whenever there was major blackouts and everything, our main employees, they had to leave. And so we helped them come to Argentina. And that was kind of my ticket to come back. So in 2019, I visit Argentina. I loved it. I stayed for 2 weeks. And I said, this is it. I need to come back. You know, I spoke Spanish. I drank mate this whole time. I was drinking mate in New York, paying really expensive prices for yerba because I would just drink it. You know, I couldn't not. And so by the end of that year, I came. And I had told my boss, I said, Marlo, look, I really want to move to Argentina. It would be nice if we could send me with a job. If not, I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to do it. And so I'm going to leave. And I did it. And so I left. And she let me keep my job. That lasted for about 2 years, which was really nice. I have some security, some stable income. And then I arrived here December 31st, 2019. The day before 2020, literally. I got here at 11 a.m. the 31st. I went out with my friends, rang in the new year, and then my life in Argentina started. So I was 25 years old when I moved. And I'll be 31 this year. So what's really crazy is that everything has just happened marvelously. You know, I kind of just trusted the process. And so once I got let go, like we say, I got let go from my job, you know, me dejaron ir, you know, or me fueron, like they say. And I needed to pay the rent. So I started teaching classes, and they turned out to be really, really fun. And then it's kind of just gone in progression from there. I do also teach Spanish because I do have all the tricks and the tips when it comes to learning Spanish, especially for Americans and English speakers. And so that's my main job now. And I've been working with Icana for maybe like a year or so. Yeah, or more. And so I remember once I started being Yankee teacher, which kind of came out of nowhere. So that's kind of where we're getting into modern day Aaron, because I have always been a person, studying journalism kind of made me lose my shyness, you know, and I learned how to ask questions, and I learned how to, you know, be in front of a camera or to not be shy around other people. But I never did anything as a journalist. I never published any stories. I never did anything. And so I have my degree kind of like just hanging on the wall, basically. I just have it hanging on the wall. And then whenever I realized that, you know, here in Argentina, people still really love the radio. And that's not something that is a thing in the United States. You know, radio is very commercial. It's like syndicated. So it's almost as though it was like a major media group owns a bunch of radio stations, and there's no public radio necessarily in all of the states and all of the cities. And so you kind of just fall into the machine, just like with news, with journalism. You know, you fall into the machine. It's corporate, it's business. And so then I realized that you could be a locutor. I didn't know what that was, and you could study locución. And so I was like, okay. And so I signed up. I went through all the process to get signed up with my high school records and whatever, and I finished and I became a locutor. So I did the 3 years, and that's what really helped me come out of my shell even more in Spanish. You know, I learned to speak well, I learned how to express myself, I learned how to do everything I did in journalism, but in Argentina, which was really, really good for me. And in 2024, I said, well, you know, I'm going to start an Instagram account and start telling people English tips. And 2 years later, I have like more than 20,000 Yankee friends. So my community, we call them Yankee friends. And the reason I chose the name Yankee is because a lot of people try to use it against you as an American, you know, estos Yankees, o sea, Yanquilandia, all of that stuff, right? And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what we are. I prefer the word Yankee over gringo. I don't like the word gringo. Yankee's better to me, you know?
Can you remind us the meaning of the word Yankee?
Yeah, so Yankees were originally,
Yes.
they were from a specific area of New England, right? They were from, not from the New York part. They were more from like Massachusetts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were like Massachusetts, Connecticut, like north. Yeah, and they were the ones who, I'm actually reading a book on this right now, but they were the ones who really valued like the actual like American dream was born from the Yankees, you know, because they were the ones who kind of believed in the rule of law. They believed in like business. They believed in respecting people's property. They didn't believe in slavery, which that's what made them crash with the people from the South. And so I really think that maybe Yankee in Argentina kind of took a form of referring to somebody from the North. I think it's just like a northerner in a sense, you know, because gringo, Argentina always wants to be different. So they're not going to say gringo because gringo has a different meaning here. Gringo is something from the campo, you know, and so that name was already taken. So you need to call them something else. Let's call them Yankees. And so that's why a lot of people, when I tell them my Instagram, they think it's Yankee, like with a K and two E's. But I did it real, like I should in Spanish. You know, I wrote it QUI, Yankee teacher. And so I think it's like one of those things where certain names and certain terms, we take them and we reappropriate them to become ours. And so ever since I started kind of just feeling like an idiot uploading videos, not having anybody watch them, and in La Carrera and Locución, they would always say, like, get out there, because now your CV, now your demo is worthless. Like, people need to see you, they need to hear you, and that's what social media is for, you know? Hi, welcome. And so I just kept going. That's the thing. And so I think going back to today's chat about the American dream is the idea that we are fed as young Americans in school, especially from New Mexico, like I told you, we're a very special place, is that they teach you that, you know, no pain, no gain is a huge American theme, right? So that's okay because it teaches you resilience, right? They teach us that if you work hard, you can get somewhere, which I think maybe at one point that was really, really true. I don't know, that's kind of, you know, in question at this moment. And then they also teach us that you can do anything you want, really. Like they say, literally, if you put your mind to it, you can go as far as you want, you can do whatever you want. And I just think a lot of times it's the material factors that hold people back, you know, because to do things you need money, to do things you need education, to do things you need experience, to do things you need maybe someone to teach you how to do. And so that's not something that I like actively keep with me, but I think it's inside of me. It's in my bones, you know, as an American. Being from New Mexico as well, we get lumped into Mexico. And so people just think we're Mexican. And so we're kind of like, we have adversity simply because of where I was born, you know? And it's happened to me, if you can believe it or not, that when I was in New York, living my life for 3 years, working, whatever, and I would meet people, and I would say, oh, I'm from New Mexico, like probably 3 or 4 times, I literally got, wow, your English is really good. But I'm from America too, you know? And so that really goes to show that people don't look at the map and they don't learn anything, you know? Because I know there's a lot of porteños that, you know, if you say you're from La Rioja, they probably say, oh, what's it like? You know, so it's normal, it's whatever. But then I realized, like, look, man, like, I don't even fit in here. You know what I mean? I'm like an American, and they just think I learned Spanish first, which no, I didn't, you know? And so whenever I took the opportunity and I made the decision to move to Argentina, I was really scared. But I knew, something in me just knew that it was it, you know? And I think that's what that's about, because it's about resilience, it's about following your heart. And maybe the actual American dream is not to be found in your own country. You know, maybe an American dream, you don't have to be from the United States to have an American dream. And I think it really boils down to feeling secure, feeling supported, you know, feeling like you fit in culturally, and also being able to go to a place where you can prosper. And so I think I'm just really grateful to the universe or whatever for having put me in Argentina, because it changed my life for good. And I'm at a point where thankfully I'm getting somewhere in life that I could never have imagined in my country. Because New York was cool, but it's very cold, it's very cutthroat, you know? It's like the first thing they say is, hey, how are you? What do you do? They don't even ask your name because they want to classify you. You know, hey, what do you do? Are you a banker? Are you an investment? Are you a waiter?
Very cold.
It's very cold. It's very like
Money, money, money.
money. It's just money, you know, and people are
Very sad.
it's very sad, you know. And so one of the biggest things that shocked me when I came to Buenos Aires is to see older people walking around, doing their life. You know what I mean? Like retirees. Because in New York, you don't see old people on the street doing their life. You know what I mean? Because they're just either up there in their apartment or they moved to somewhere outside the city. And so I think as time goes on, I started seeing that Argentina does have a lot in common with the United States. The thing about like the power and the strength of the campo in the whole fabric of the nation is very, very common. You know what I mean? Like their farmers are everything, you know, cattle and grain and consume American beef, and all of these ideas are just like we have in Argentina, you know? And so I think aside from there's actually a country music festival in San Pedro every year. And I was like, I'm trying to go, you know, because I love country music personally. And people say it's really fun, you know, in freaking San Pedro. And so little things like that are so unexpected. And so one of the things that I have written here is that as I got older, I kind of realized that the whole American dream, work hard, achieve hard, is kind of a myth, because not necessarily we all have the same conditions to start, right? And so then as you get older, you start learning the difference between equality and equity. You know, equality is opening the same door for everybody. Equity is helping everybody get through it. You know what I mean? And so I think as I got older and I came here at just the right age, where I wasn't too young, where I kind of was influenced in bad ways by people and for many things. And I was able to find my way once I had to find a solution, you know? And I think that if I hadn't gotten fired, I don't know where I would be, honestly. Like it was like one of the best things that ever happened to me, getting fired from a really well-paying job that was stable, you know? And I just did what I have to do. And so I think without trying it, all of that resilience that they kind of drill into your head came through. And so the thing that I found is that a lot of people talk about being self-made. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Like a self-made millionaire and all those things. But I don't really think that's a thing, because the people that bring you up and the people that surround you and the people that you have in your life are really the ones that make you. And it really comes down to each of us remaking ourselves, because you can't make your own self. You know what I mean? We're made, we are how we are. And if anything, you have to reiterate and learn more about yourself, you know, unlearn certain things. And so when it came to being an entrepreneur in Argentina, I don't know if there's business owners here or people who work for themselves, right? Cuentapropistas, but it's very difficult. It's tremendously difficult. And it's crazy because you have to always be on top of certain details that in other countries you would never have to worry about. You know what I mean? Changing money from one currency to the other, and then the next month changing it back, you know, or like knowing to update your prices, or feeling okay with raising your prices because everybody expects it. And that was one of the hardest things for me, like sending the inflation email every month or every 3 months. And it's like, can I though, you know? And it's like, as you start doing better, you realize that that's how business is. And so it teaches you to be almost like very, very clever. You know, to do business and to work in Argentina, you have to be really clever. And it doesn't mean that you have to be vivo, because I learned about viveza criolla as well, because that's not really a good thing, you know, not always, you know, but you have to be smart, you have to be clever. And so here, where there's no safety net, you know, I can't ask my mom to send me money. I can't ask for a loan necessarily because I don't want to pay a bunch of interest. You have to really just be smart. And the fact that you get paid once a month in Argentina was a huge, huge adjustment for me, because in the United States we get paid every other week, the 15th and the 30th, or every other Friday. And so now, thankfully, it's been 4 years of self-work, and I'm finally at the point where I'm growing my operation. I've hired 4 teachers. And so Yankee Teacher has helped that. And so in locución, they would tell us, expose yourselves. Go online, upload videos. Even if your mom doesn't watch your video, upload your video, because you're going to get better. You're going to get more, you know what I mean? You get more experience. And now every single day I get people asking for classes and I can't give anymore. And I'm really fortunate because it's gotten me to a point where I can give work to others, you know? And so I have a couple of people on my team that are like brand new in Argentina, and me being able to help them in any way makes me feel really good, because I feel like I've really been through it. I kind of lived through the pandemic, you know? I've been through all of the economic turmoil that we all lived through and we all know about. And you just have to keep going and know that, be true to yourself in a sense, you know? And so Argentina, it's like you love it or you leave it in many ways, you know, and I don't choose to leave it. And so we're almost like out of time, but I don't know if you guys have any questions. I kind of talked your heads off. Any questions? Yeah? Did anybody miss anything I said? My accent? Did I speak too quick? Yeah?
Is there anything you miss from your country?
So let me tell you, in New Mexico, we eat spicy food. We eat Mexican food, essentially. I love spicy food. Chili. I love ranch dressing. Have you guys had ranch in America?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
You say in New York, the people are very cold. And in the campo, in the field, and the farmers, how are in America?
I think the thing about farmers is that unless you have a reason, you're never going to run into them. And so I think the thing about people from the country, they're very polite. You know, they're never going to be rude to you unless you're rude to them. So they're more like, treat me as you want to be treated people. I do think that there are certain topics that maybe you don't touch with certain people, you know, politics, religion, ideology. Sometimes you have to avoid those subjects and kind of connect on a human level. And it is kind of crazy because no matter what state people are from, being a country person is kind of universal, you know? Because if you work in the fields or you have a farm or you raise cattle, that is it's like gives you a different identity, you know? Just like being here. If you're from Santa Fe or Cordoba, you have a tambo, you still have, that's your identity. It's not necessarily your tambo santafesino y coso. And so I think country people and people that work to bring the food to the table, essentially, they're some of the most hardworking people you'll ever meet. You know, they get up early, it's cold, nobody wants to do their job, you know, it's a bad year. They're the ones who stay and they keep trying, you know, and work the land. And it's just crazy when you learn that the work that they do for us to have rice at the supermarket is like a world of logistics and everything. And so I think when we can connect on a human level, that's better. But I don't really have a lot of country friends.
Why to the farmer in some states they call it this famous like the redneck?
Redneck?
Yeah, that is something that it seems like bad.
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah.
It's in the way that it's
Pretty derogatory. So the thing about, it's kind of like janky. So there are people that are called rednecks by city people, and the city people call them rednecks in a bad way, and then they call themselves rednecks in a good way. So maybe someone who's not a fan of my country will say, "A estos yankees de..." But I mean, yeah, I am a Yankee, and that's cool, you know? And so I think it's like being redneck, it all depends on how you use the term, and it really depends on who you say it to, because some people might be proud rednecks, you know? There's like, people own it. It's almost like the word turro. It's like used to be a bad thing, and now people kind of own it, you know? It's like a cultural identity thing. And so it is really sad that we've come down to where you have to call each other names, you know, in a bad way. And it kind of shows that maybe it leaves people out too, because there might be black people who are technically rednecks, but since their neck doesn't get burnt, they're not technically a redneck, you know? And so I think it's just crazy that we take these terms and we kind of flip them, you know? It's almost like the B word is now a good thing, you know? You guys know about that? Yeah?
I have a question. Having been here in Argentina so long, or an intense life here in Argentina, has it, thinking about the American dream and how America has made possible, or not, within their own borders, has it made you think about America differently, being away and doing your life, having proof that you could live somewhere else and looking at that American dream that you get ingrained in your brain from America.
Yeah, I think it at times it kind of makes me sad that I personally, I mean, I didn't leave for any traumatic reason, thankfully. I'm fortunate in that way where I wasn't forced to leave my country like so many people are. And I chose where to go, and I was able to choose, and I was able to have a legal path to stay here, because that's another, if you live with that uncertainty that at any time on your border run, they're going to close the door on you and you lose all your life or whatever. And I think that me kind of being outside of the United States made me care a lot about the things that I care about in the United States. So for example, I really value the food. I really value the sky in New Mexico. I really value the landscape that I grew up in, because it's nothing related to where I live now. The dryness, the bigness of the mountains, you know, the small town, stuff like that. And so now I'm able to kind of see the United States with a lovelier lens, because now I am able to be a tourist in the United States. And being a tourist in the United States is the best thing in the world, you know, because it's like a paradise for consumption.
Your original city?
Las Cruces, New Mexico. Las Cruces.
Ajá.
¿Viste El Paso y Ciudad Juárez?
El Paso.
Texas.
Sí.
Bueno, a 30 kilómetros al norte.
Okay.
In New Mexico, not in Texas. The whole land is the borderland. That's what we call ourselves, because we have that's the thing. In this book that I'm reading, which I'll show you guys the name later, but it kind of shows that inside one state, which is the United States,
Yes.
there are more than 15 different nations. Because the way that the Southwest was founded, the values that we hold, the history that we have is not the same as in Florida, which is not the same as in Maine, which is not the same as in the West Coast. And so really it's like a place where 15 different nations coexist together, you know? And so now I'm able to kind of see the good things that I like about the United States, and I'm able to I kind of, you know, pay extra close attention to maybe the things that I am not in agreement with. But at the same time, I don't want to, you know, be very vocal about that, because I also like make a name for myself being junkie teacher. So I'm not going to go and like talk mess about America necessarily. But I do think that there are certain ideas that maybe America has installed culturally that aren't necessarily true anymore. You know, America's a different place. It's not the same as it was in Home Alone in the 90s, you know, or like all those classic movies. And so I try to, with my account, I try to kind of let people know how things are now. You know, what we say. My thing is linguistics, no? But like, how do we say this? What do we say for this? Did you know that Argentinians use the word box wrong for a bunch of stuff? Everything's a box. Like, everything's a box. And that's not how we say it in English. So little things like that. And I'm able to enjoy my country when I'm able to go and, you know, get my giant drink and all that stuff.
Can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
So I really like you mentioned about resilience, because I'm a foreigner here as well. So was there during 6 years, except first year, because most people first year
It's a honeymoon.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So
honeymoon.
except first year, was there any moment very critical that you were frustrated that making a decision to love it or leave it? But you're here, so
Was I ever close to leaving?
yes, but was there a moment?
I think there-
And sorry.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned about support.
Mhm.
So when you had that kind of moment, really down, resilience there was a resilience. That's why you're here now. So resilience from you, or did you get any support from
External sources. So yeah, so I am in a relationship with my partner Leandro. So I have all my political family now, which is really nice. It's kind of like the big family that I always wanted, with all the kids and the tios and the tias and the madrina and all that. And it's amazing, you know, because we have a really solid Argentine Christmas, dancing cumbia until the sun comes up, you know, drinking ananafis, stuff like that. So the family side, thankfully, since I've been here, I've had that through my political family. But I think the resilience that I keep with me is kind of like a hope for the future. And so I know that if I just keep working hard, if I keep making a name for myself, if I keep doing business in a good way that people want to keep coming back, that'll kind of guarantee me a good future. And so there are times where, you know, I've had a really hard month with business and I'm like, gosh, what do I do? You know what I mean? Have to take out your savings to put into the business. And like, those are less and less, thankfully. And so I think learning from your mistakes kind of adds to your resilience like your mochila de resiliencia, and you are able to kind of keep going and to also find the good stuff, because there's a lot of things to not be happy about in a general sense living in Argentina, you know, and everybody has their things, their qualms, but I think it's just finding what you're here for and keeping your purpose, you know, and you probably think about that too. Where are you from? Where are you from?
I'm from South Korea.
Okay.
And now it's been 3 years, so that's why I'm in that time zone.
Yeah, and just think, like, just remember the reasons you came, remember the things that you love, and remember, like, just why you're here, because you came a long freaking way. You're from like three times more far than me, and so it must be hard, you know, because it's hard to talk to your family at times, you know, because they're asleep when you're awake, stuff like that. And so I would just say remember why you're here, and that'll keep you going. So yeah, so the time is up. So what we can do is take like a 5-minute break, get some water, go to the bathroom, and then we'll come back and we can talk all together. We'll have a debate. Thank you guys for watching all around Argentina. I hope to visit all of your centers one day. Maybe I'll go dress like this. We'll see you.